I think he's certainly a second rounder with this draft capital, and
Okay.
he will go in, I imagine, in every second round. I probably won't have any shares. I'm not a big fan, so I'll be grabbing somebody else.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Fantasy Football Freaks. He's Vaz, I'm Jason, and we continue looking at the NFL draft now that day 2 is complete. There were still a lot of question marks after day 1, like who was going to be the top dog in Buffalo or with the Chargers when it comes to receivers. Well, those questions were answered early on in day 2 of the NFL draft. Vaz, let's take a look at what happened. I think the big story was going to be who were going to be the top receivers taken by Buffalo and the Chargers, and those were answered immediately. Buffalo taking Keon Coleman at 201, and the Chargers taking Ladd McConkey at 202. Your thoughts on those picks?
Yeah, so we didn't have to wait very long at all. The Chargers traded up to 202, and they got McConkey, which I loved. So starting with Keon Coleman at 201. I think it's a great pick for Buffalo from like an NFL perspective. I'm not sure it's like the greatest pick for fantasy for Keon Coleman specifically, but what it means is like I was looking at it like almost as a direct replacement to Gabe Davis. Uh, Somebody that can stretch the field, somebody that plays exclusively on the outside. And when I saw that pick, I thought to myself, like, this is really good for the other pass catchers, especially the guys in the middle, like Curtis Samuel, like Dalton Kincaid. Like I thought, okay, if they're gonna draft a receiver, that's Keon Coleman would be the best for these guys because they're going to demand more targets than Keon Coleman. From like an NFL perspective, I love it for Buffalo. They're going to be hard to play against with Shakir and with Coleman stretching the field and like making everybody play sideline to sideline. And it's going to open up the middle of the field for Curtis Samuel and Dalton Kincaid. So and for Josh Allen's legs as well, for James Cook's legs as well. So like from a real NFL standpoint, I love it for Buffalo. And for a fantasy perspective, it's good. Obviously, like Keon Coleman's going to rise in all fantasy drafts, but I think it's especially great for, Dalton Kincaid most specifically.
Okay, that was my question. I was just about to ask you, but answered. So definitely a big rise there for Kincaid. What about the pick with Ladd McConkey going to the Chargers?
Yeah, love this pick. So I like Ladd McConkey a lot. And I think if I had to guess, he almost immediately becomes Justin Herbert's like go-to guy, like new Keenan Allen, because he gets open really quickly. He's really fast and he separates easily. Definitely easier than Quentin Johnson or Joshua Palmer, right? So I think like if I had to put money on it, he's their go-to guy. I think the Chargers, like, they showed us their hand yesterday. They want to run the ball. I don't know how much passing they're going to do, so I don't know how many targets he will get. I don't think it's going to be an extreme amount like Keenan Allen was getting, but I just think like for me, Ladd McConkey will be a big riser. Like I'm going to move him up immediately into like Xavier Worthy's tier. I don't know if I'll have him ahead of Xavier Worthy or behind, but I'll say right now I'll definitely have him ahead of Michael Penix at 12. I'll definitely move him up into that tier. Yeah, I love the pick.
Okay, so McConkey and Coleman, if you're in a rookie draft right now, both of those are going to wide receiver needy teams. Which one of those do you take first based on their landing spots and based on their talents?
So based on talent, I like McConkey more. And I mean, obviously the Bills landing spot is gold. But if I'm playing in a PPR format, it's really easy. I'm going to take McConkey. If I'm playing in a league that does not award any points for receptions, then I'm going to take Keon Coleman. He's got a lot more touchdown upside, I would say, and yardage upside. So if I play in a half PPR format, then it gets tricky for me. But I would probably put McConkey ahead of Coleman in half PPR. Actually, I feel confident in saying that. In full PPR, definitely I'm taking McConkey over him. And then in zero PPR, I think I'd go with Coleman there.
Okay, fair enough. One of the other things with these two picks was the lack of a trade, because I think going into this draft, a lot of people were expecting a trade of Brandon Ayuk or T. Higgins to either Buffalo or the Chargers. So the fact that neither of those things happened on day one or day two, I mean, it could still happen, but I think the most common thought is that because it hasn't happened yet, it most likely won't. And it seems like their values will then stabilize with their respective teams, depending on if they can figure out a contract medium, right?
Yeah, I would imagine so. I think the Chargers just got out of like salary cap hell and they're still paying, Mike Williams, or they just got out of that contract with Keenan Allen as well. So like I don't think they have a lot of cap space, and I don't think it makes sense to pay another receiver when you can get one on the cheap that you like early in round two. So I can understand why a trade didn't happen, and I don't know that it will at this point. I would, if I were a betting man, I would not expect a trade at this point. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think San Francisco is willing to take like a day three pick for either of those guys. So
Yeah, it would seem at this point, anyways. Let's move on to one more wide receiver that was taken sort of in the same tier as these
yeah.
guys. That was Jalen Polk at the fifth pick of the second round to the New England Patriots. I know he was lower down on your original rookie ranking. So, what did you think of him going that early, and then to the Patriots in particular?
Yeah, I know a lot of people really like Polk. I'm not one of them. I when I watched his film, I didn't see a guy that separates easily. He's got good hands. He wins. He was winning with speed in college, which scares me because he's not overly fast, and NFL's a different play speed. So I saw a guy that doesn't separate easily, and then I mean, he gets the great draft capital at 205, but he also goes to a terrible landing spot in the Patriots. There's a wide open depth chart. He's fighting for targets with like Kendrick Bourne and Demario Davis. I think I have that name wrong. I'm sorry. Demario Douglas, with Douglas and with Kendrick Bourne. So, I mean, the depth chart's wide open, but I just think Bourne and Douglas are better players than he is, easier separators. So that's just my personal bias. I'm not moving him up considerably. I'm not moving him considerably up my rankings because I don't really like him and I don't like the landing spot. So you can't really ignore the draft capital. So I'm not going to lower him in my rankings because of the landing spot, but I don't think I'm going to move him up too far either.
Do you think he would be a second round for a 12 team super flex league? Do you think he
Yeah.
would make the top 24, or would he be a third rounder in your eyes for a half PPR?
I think he's certainly a second rounder with this draft capital, and
Okay,
he will go in, I imagine, in every second round. I probably won't have any shares. I'm not a big fan, so I'll be grabbing somebody else. But yeah, I imagine he goes in the second round in pretty much all the drafts just based on draft capital.
sure. Okay. The next skill position to go was finally the first running back of the draft. I think a lot of people were hoping or thinking that Jonathan Brooks would go to the Dallas Cowboys. That did not happen. He was taken by the Carolina Panthers. I know you're very high on Brooks. So
Yeah.
first off, how did you feel about his landing spot with Carolina compared to Dallas?
Okay, well, with running backs in particular, draft capital is really, really important. When you invest like a top 50 pick in a running back, you're you're telling everybody that you expect him to be the main guy for the next 4 years. So I love the pick of Jonathan Brooks. Like I'm really high on the talent. I love this tape. And then going that high, I can see, and Carolina traded up for him as well. So in my mind, he's the feature back. He's the bell cow back. There's nobody behind him that scares me. Like Chuba Hubbard is not that guy. So I really like the pick, and they're giving Bryce Young a ton of help too, which I really like as a Bryce Young owner. So I love the pick, and I think Jonathan Brooks is another that's going to move up my rankings, and not move up my rankings because he was 11 before the draft, and I think he's going to be right around there still. Uh, He'll move ahead of Penix absolutely into the first round of rookie drafts. In the same tier, I expect the same tier as Worthy and McConkey. Brooks will be right there.
Okay. And he was the only running back to go in round two. Three more went in round three. Trey Benson to Arizona, Blake Corum to the Rams, and Marshawn Lloyd to Green Bay. You could say notable absence is Jalen Wright. Did
Yeah.
not get drafted in the second day. So let's talk a little bit about those running backs as mentioned. How did you like the landing spots for them, and how surprised were you that Wright was not taken at all?
Okay, well, before the NFL draft, I really only had two running backs like high in my rankings. The other guys I had pushed way down, and then those were Brooks and Benson. So I wasn't surprised that they were the only two running backs taken in my mind with a high pick for a running back. Like once you pass the middle of the third round, that draft capital used on a running back just can be used on like a backup running back or a replacement level running back, right? So like when I see Benson going early third round, that's enough of an investment that I expect that the Cardinals want him to one day be the feature back. I expect this year he'll be like I wouldn't say a 1B, but like a complementary piece. And then maybe he earns more touches as the season rolls along. And then next year, I expect him to be the feature back. But you never know. Early third round draft capital is replaceable, but more often than not, they get the shot if they prove that they're decent in their first year. So I like the draft capital and landing spot for Troy Benson. And then for the other two guys that were drafted, they're just backups. Like they're nothing. It's for me, it's Brooks and Benson, and then garbage. Like I'm not touching these other guys. Blake Corum goes to the Rams. Yeah, there's potential there, possibly if there's an injury or something, or I don't know what's going to happen there. But for me, I'm not touching them in the second round. If they're there in the third round of rookie drafts, I'll start considering them there.
Okay, so that was my next question is, are they even second round picks for you? So they are not. Benson would be a second round pick for you, whereas Corbin Lloyd
Yeah,
would not then, right?
yeah. Benson will be like an early-ish second round pick for me. Not really early, but probably like 203, 204, 205, that range. And then yeah, the other guys will be pushing to the early third at the earliest, I think.
Okay, so then I mentioned the absence of Jalen Wright not being drafted in the first 2 days. So then here's my question. If Wright is taken by Dallas, because Dallas still doesn't have a running back yet. So it asks you the question. I mean, do you go out and get Rico Dowdle or Deuce Vaughn, Royce Freeman, Malik Davis? Or if Dallas drafts Jalen Wright, let's say in like even the 6th or 7th round, if they take him really, really late, are you still dropping him down considerably, or would he suddenly become a second round pick for you?
Okay, Jalen Wright specifically. If
Yeah.
Jalen Wright specifically goes in round four, I would take him above the two running backs that went before him. So that would be Corum.
And
What was
Lloyd.
it? Corum and
Corbin
Lloyd.
Lloyd.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I would take if he went specifically in the fourth round of Dallas, he would jump those two.
Mm-hmm.
Um, any later he wouldn't because like I mean, and then in terms of your question about grabbing other guys, if they're on the waiver wire, yes, I would grab them. I'm not trading for them. Like I'm gonna play a wait and see game with Dallas. I don't know what's happening. I'd imagine they add somebody. I could see Zeke going there now. Somebody with a little bit more pedigree, like than those guys you mentioned. I think they will add somebody in the draft in round four, round five, round six, something like that. I'll be weary about grabbing that guy early though, because it just this kind of draft capital doesn't tell me anything. I don't expect that they could still be like third on the depth chart. So we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, if Wright specifically goes in round four, he'll move up. He'll move up into the late second round, I'd imagine, possibly even middle of the second round, because I do like Wright.
Yeah. So if Dallas takes Wright in the 4th, you're taking him in the 2nd, but you're not
Yeah.
going to move him ahead of Benson, who you're taking earlier in the 2nd.
Unlikely, unless like
Unlikely.
Dallas traded up to like the top of round four for him. If that
Hmm.
specific thing happened, then I would consider it. But yeah, if like they waited till the end of round four and grabbed him, I wouldn't move him ahead of Benson. No.
Okay. Fair enough.
Now, I can't do it for you. The inches we need are everywhere around us. What are you gonna do? Like! Subscribe! Subscribe!
Let's talk about some of the other wide receivers that went later in round 2. And in particular, one that went later than I guess you and a lot of people thought. Adonai Mitchell was perhaps even seen as a potential first round pick, but he was taken in the next tier of second round picks as he went 20th pick of the second round to Indianapolis. How surprised were you that he dropped that much? And what do you think of his landing spot?
I was quite surprised because I love the tape, I love the talent, and I wasn't alone there. So my instant reaction to that was that I had heard rumors that he had uh like kind of failed the interview process. And there's reports that he takes plays off when he's not the main target. So I'm sure there's some character concerns is what I'm getting at. And when I see the fall based on the tape I saw, based on the production last season that I saw as well, I imagine that there is some serious character concerns that he probably did fail the interview process with some teams, and then like he just fell too far, and then Indianapolis couldn't pass on him. In terms of the landing spot, it's awful. Like he goes to a landing spot, with established receivers in place, low volume passing offense. So it's an awful landing spot. He's going to move way down my rankings. I like the talent, so I'm still going to be willing to draft him if he's there in the middle of round second, middle of round two, I should say. But yeah, he's going to move way down my rankings. He was previously at number 10 overall, and there's no way I'm taking him anywhere close to that.
Okay. So, are you dropping him more because of the landing spot being Indianapolis, or how much do you consider the your brain right away says, okay, the reason he probably dropped was because of character issues, and now teams might not like him in the same sort of way. So, how much do you weigh that into your decision to drop him as well, or is it strictly because he's an Indianapolis?
I think more than anything, it's the landing spot.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got to compete with Michael Pittman now and even Josh Downs. And Anthony Richardson, I don't expect to be a high volume passer. And there's going to be a lot of rushing touchdowns with Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson. So yeah, it's the landing spot. Like if he had fell to the middle of round two and gone to a really great landing spot, like say like the Cowboys or something, then he wouldn't fall that far down my rankings. He'd still probably be like the 201 or the 202 maybe. But I expect he's going to be around the 206 or 207 when I get my final rankings out.
Okay, fair enough. Let's talk about the second tight end taken was Ben Sinnott as he goes to Washington with pick 221, basically there to eventually become a replacement for Zach Ertz.
Yeah, I mean, this was a surprising one, right? I didn't expect that. They just released Logan Thomas as well, so I think there is like a wide open depth chart once Zach Ertz eventually gets injured, and once yeah, after next season, I suppose. I mean, I didn't love his tape. Tight ends are tough because you don't really know like how much they want you want them to block or whatnot. But he doesn't have a good resume, a blocking resume. He's like predominantly a pass catching tight end. So I guess they do expect him to be the starting guy next year. Waiting in the wings behind Zach Ertz. So, but I guess I'm gonna have to redive into his tape specifically and see what they liked so much about him. Yeah.
Okay, and after that, mostly round three people. Jets taking Malachi Corley at 301. Jermaine Burton goes 316 to Cincinnati. He was one of your sleepers that you talked about for the rookie draft. What did you think of him going to Cincy and Corley going to the Jets?
Okay, so yeah, Corley goes first pick of round three to the Jets, and he probably slides right into the slot receiver role there. Aaron Rodgers typically does not target receivers, young rookie receivers. They kind of got to earn their chops, right?
Yeah.
But Corley, he's like a gadget guy. Maybe they think he's going to help in special teams as well. So I would be a little bit hesitant to move him up because of the landing spot and because of the draft capital. But you can't ignore it. Like he got good draft capital and it's a decent landing spot. He should see the field pretty early on. But they did add Mike Williams and they still have Garrett Wilson. So there's going to be targets are going to be hard to come by. So I would be weary of that. And then talking about Jermaine Burton, who I love, going to Cincy, I would definitely move Jermaine Burton above Malachi Corley now. I had them like neck and neck in the same tier in our previous rankings, but I was worried that Burton might go in like round four of the NFL draft, and he goes in middle of round three to what I think is a great landing spot because like if T moves on, even after this season, if they move on from T, I think like Jermaine Burton's got enough skill that he could step right into the wide receiver two role there. And like, what a role that could be, right? So yeah, like I love the guy, I love the tape, I love the talent, and then the landing spot is phenomenal for the future. So he's gonna shoot up my rankings.
Yeah, because I think they've got the franchise tag on Higgins, so it could very well be 1 year left there for him, or maybe if they really like Burton in training camp, then maybe it's easier for them to move on from Higgins in a trade, which
Right.
certainly would show really well for Burton. The only other tight end that went in the first 2 days was Tip Riemann as he went to Arizona at 318. And the one thing about that is it also showed the absence of Tavarian Sanders. Sorry,
Jatavian.
Jatavian Sanders. So Jatavian Sanders not drafted on the first 2 days at all, and others were surprised about that. And Tip Riemann sneaking in there in pick 18. What do you think of him? Does he go up at all? Arizona, right?
He doesn't go up at all because he's predominantly a blocking tight end. So just be wary of that. Like I remember last year, Darnell Washington, a lot of people had him high because they thought he's going to be a great tight end, and he got some good draft capital to Pittsburgh. But you know what? He's a blocking tight end, and don't go drafting all tight ends because they get drafted high. You got to like look into them more. And this guy is predominantly a blocking tight ends. He has no pretty much no production in college. So. I'll rewatch the tape and make sure I'm not wrong here, but I think from what I've read, he's predominantly a blocking tight end, so no movement for me. And then yeah, talking about Jatavian Sanders, a little bit shocking that he doesn't go on day two. I'm surprised by that. I expect he'll go definitely in round four. I'd imagine he'd go in round four. But yeah, he's going to move way down, of course. You know, tight ends that go after day two don't hit very often. So maybe that he looked a lot faster on tape than he did at the combine. So maybe teams started questioning that. And the combine measurables and speed score and that kind of thing is really important at the tight end position. So that might have been a reason for his slip.
All right. Another wide receiver to look at, pick 20 of round 3 was Roman Wilson going to the Steelers. Should be a pretty good landing spot for him.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Great landing spot. Probably, sufficient draft capital. I think they probably see him as like a direct replacement to Deontay Johnson. He's like a slot player, quick twitch guy. So I think, yeah, it's a phenomenal spot. Like he's capable of stepping into the most targets in that offense immediately. So yeah, phenomenal spot for Roman Wilson. He'll definitely move up my rankings as well.
What do you think? Early second or mid second, based on landing spot and his talent as well?
Definitely not early second.
Okay.
I'll mid second because it's still like the middle of the third round. Like I'm not going to overreact to landing spot when you get drafted in the middle of the third round.
Okay. And a couple more wide receivers went in round 3. Jalen McMillan, pick 329 to the Bucks, and then Luke McCaffrey to Washington at pick 337. That was actually the final pick of the third round. What do you think of those two?
Okay, so yeah, now we're in flyer territory. I think once you reach like the compensatory picks of round 3, these receivers you never really know if they're going to hit or not. Like they could just be drafted because maybe teams view them as like good special teams players or something. So like now we're at the point like these two guys specifically, I'll be looking at them in like round 3, late round 3, mid round 3 of rookie drafts as like potential flyers if I'm high on them. Like I'm not particularly high on either of these guys, but I could imagine that like if some guys go in round 4 that I prefer over them, I'll be moving them down my rankings because I'm not in love with the landing spots or the draft capital in either of their cases.
Okay, and speaking of round 4, someone who was not drafted yet that we were perhaps expecting to be drafted was Troy Franklin. So Franklin undrafted in the first 2 days of the NFL draft. Your thoughts on him being undrafted, and where would you like to see him go to still keep him draft relevant for rookie drafts?
Yeah, so that was a big surprise. Like it reminded me of Jalen Hyatt's slip last year. I'm really happy that I rewatched his tape and moved him way down my rankings because like clearly NFL teams do not believe that he's an easy separator, and that production was, I don't know, the production just I don't know how he got such easy production in college, but it's not translatable to the NFL perhaps. I don't know if there's a landing spot that can save him at this point. He's a fourth round pick at best, and I think NFL teams have shown us they're not interested. So I won't be touching him. Like there is going to be somebody who still drafts him like late second, early third in rookie drafts because of the name value and because of, the college production, or they liked his tape or whatnot. It's not going to be me. He moved way down my rankings because I saw like flaws in his game. And now NFL teams have shown me that they see those same flaws. So yeah, there's at this point no landing spot that's going to save him.
Okay, so even if he goes to Buffalo or the Chargers, not going to use a mid-third on him. Mid-third round pick.
Mid-third, sure. I'd be willing to use a mid-third round pick.
Mid-third. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Mid-third, perhaps. But and that's in an ideal landing spot, as mentioned. Be different if he was with the Seahawks.
I'd rather take like a backup running back though. Like I'd definitely rather take like a running back who a running back who goes around 4 and is viewed as like a backup running back. I'd definitely rather take that than Troy Franklin.
Okay, great. Well, any other thoughts that you had on the first 2 days of the NFL draft so far? Any surprises or anything where you thought, hey, this is an important thing to note based on what has happened so far?
The only thing I would say is the key takeaway for me is the 2 receivers taken to the top of round 2, Keon Coleman and Ladd McConkey. They will shoot up right into the Xavier Worthy tier, probably both of them ahead of Michael Penix. Those are going to be like late first round, early second round picks. And then as well as Jonathan Brooks. Jonathan Brooks will shoot up into that same area of rookie drafts. So that's the big takeaway for me. And then I think like Trey Benson, also draftable early to mid second round. And then of course I really like Jermaine Burton as well, but he'll probably be more of like a mid to late second round pick. Okay. How about yourself?
I think the big thing was for me the fact that there wasn't a trade for Brandon Ayuk or T. Higgins. It was something that I was expecting at least one or the other to go to Buffalo or to the Chargers. So the fact that neither of them were moved in the first 2 days, I think that was my biggest surprise. And then the second biggest surprise would just be the fact that Dallas hasn't drafted a running back yet. So, and this is of course going beyond the Michael Penix pick in day one. So that's probably the biggest shock of everything. But those other things, those would be my 3 biggest surprise so far early on in the draft. But of course, we are going to wrap up the draft later on this week. I think there's not really any significant things we can talk about that's going to happen in day 3 of the draft with the later picks. But what we will do is once the draft is complete, you're going to take a few days to kind of really hammer out what the rookie rankings should be now based on landing spots. So within a couple of days, we're going to put out a new rookie rankings based on who you should be taking in your fantasy football dynasty rookie drafts. And this is going to be what you should base your draft on. I'm sure you're going to look forward to that process as well, Vaz, because this is just what you like to do.
Yeah. Yes and no, because I know my league mates will be tuning in to gain an upper hand. But yeah, I'll be excited for that video without question. Those are my favorite videos to do.
All right. So when that video is out, you will know about it immediately if you are subscribed to this channel. So subscribe to the channel, like this video, and stay tuned for that rookie rankings video coming up on Fantasy Football Freaks.